G'day guys, Tom here from Different Drop with DDTV episode 18 with yet another very special guest joining us today. In DDHQ we have Ray Nadeson from Lethbridge Wines down in Geelong. Look, Lethbridge, if you're into really naturally made wines that speak of terroir and where they come from, Ray and Marie at Lethbridge were real pioneers of this style, I think, in Australia, and it's a pleasure to have you in, mate. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Tom. When you say pioneer, it makes me feel very old, as it was my wife's 50th birthday yesterday. It makes me feel even older.
Mate, you're looking remarkably fresh, I think, after some celebrations. Mate, I guess for people that don't know much about the Lethbridge story, can you give just a brief background about yourself and Marie and the journey you guys took to get to where you are today?
It seems such a long time ago, but it's actually started now 23 years ago. So we've had Lethbridge. We set up Lethbridge 20 years ago, but the journey started 23 years ago, and you got to hark back to a time in Australia. And it's really interesting when you come into a place like this, you just realise how far it's moved. You know, like you go back into where Marie and I started drinking wine. You know, like there was really only a handful of really cool producers.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of good, ordinary wine.
Yep.
But there was so few cool producers, and so we sort of thought to ourselves, yeah, there's got to be a niche here for making wines like some of the things that we were drinking from Europe, something a little bit quirky, a little bit out there, perhaps with a little bit more focus on where it was grown.
Yeah.
I think Australia in that sort of late 80s was all about, Southeast Australia.
Yep.
And it was brand Australia.
And the final product, just chasing that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Big tanks of good, ordinary wine.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to do this, and so we thought, well, what are we going to do here? And so both of us have got science backgrounds.
Yep.
So I used to teach medicine at Monash, and Marie is a medicinal chemist. And so we both sort of thought to ourselves, what are we going to do? What are we going to bring to the wine industry that's different? And what we thought was we wanted to look at using our sort of scientific knowledge, but not in the evil scientist way.
Yeah, sure.
But we wanted to actually make wines naturally, but from a point of knowledge.
Yeah.
We want to be able to look at something and say, well, I have some understanding how those yeasts work, and I want to push and nudge that ferment this way or that way. And it would be using natural things like sunlight or a bit of cooling.
Sure.
We might move it in and out of the winery, this sort of thing. Know what wines, great wines, how they are made naturally, and try to evolve that. That's what we wanted to bring. The primary thing, though, is to find grapes.
Yeah.
And so we looked over the whole of southern Victoria, and Marie and my passion has always been for Pinot, Chardonnay, and Shiraz.
Yep.
And so what we really were looking for was a place that could grow those three varieties. Shiraz in a cool climate style.
Yep.
Was pretty important to us, and really that left us with that dress circle of Melbourne, so luckily that's where we lived. So we ended up looking at the Yarra, Mornington, the usual suspects, but we fell in love with Geelong. There's something really special about it. It's in fact the area that first grew grapes in Australia.
Yeah. It's a remarkable history there, and ancient soils as well. And I guess
really
when you speak to us about the wines, it's all about site and where they come from. And is that the theme throughout the range?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, like, we are trying to make wines that speak of the place they're from. That's the key. If I can taste the fruit, or taste the wine, and I can taste where that place is, I can taste the soil, and I can see it year after year. I've been doing 20 vintages now, so I can taste the Chardonnay coming from a vineyard, and I go, yep, that looks kind of like that place. And it doesn't matter about the vintage.
No.
Like we had 11, which was a cool vintage, and we can have 13, which is a warm vintage. Yeah, the sort of undulations are a little bit different in the wine, but the terroir is kind of the same.
We tried 2011 Shiraz a few moments ago, and it was fantastic. And a lot of people wouldn't go near it just for the vintage, but it was smoky and earthy and savoury and just beautiful.
It's really interesting. You'll get to try, because there's only 17 cases of that left. So you'll get to try the 13 soon, and you'll see a totally different wine. It's a totally much warmer vintage, but underpinning is the place. And when you should, if you keep one bottle of the 11, grab a bottle of 13 and you taste them side by side and you go, yeah, I think I get it. Like I see what Ray's trying to do. I did it the other day. We did a little masterclass at home and we sort of went through the back, a series of vintages and we went, yep, that kind of works.
What I love about that natural approach that you take is it's not about just sticking a natural label on it to be trendy or cool. It's about just getting out of the way of that terroir. In the winery, things like whole bunches, you explained some really interesting techniques with the Pinot Gris. Is it still the same mentality of just trying to help the wine on its way rather than adjusting?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. The French have got this beautiful word élevage, and it's élevage means to bring up, and they use it for children as well. Like to grow. And I always think about wine. I've got 4 kids, and I always think about lots of things in the way of children, and I think about them as children. In that you're not trying to beat them over the head and make them into something that you want them to be. But you want to steer them gently in the direction that you would like them to be.
Sure.
But they're not going to go there if they don't start in the right place. So but you're gently guiding them with the sort of way that we make wine. We will use techniques which will sort of hopefully frame the place that it's from. Is it supernatural? Not supernatural. Is it extremely natural? Yeah, I think so. I mean, but we won't not add acid. We're not dogmatic about it, or we won't not add sulfur. That's not it.
No.
Like if you want to show the place, you need to be out of the way, but you can't be so hands off. It's like an unruly child.
Yeah.
It can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So you might have the starting point,
and 1 in 100 might work out okay, but
it might be fine. But it not always. No. There's an old Indian saying. They talk about. I'm from India, so they have this saying where they talk about having a plant, and they talk about this for children, that you have to put the stake so that the plant can grow up the stake. And they talk about this for children, that you have to place the guide. And so for us, with the wines, we make sure all the numbers and everything kind of looks right. Not so much the numbers, really. It's really how it tastes.
Yeah.
If the acidity's in the right spot, the flavours are in the right spot, then we go, well, kind of now we can just watch.
Yeah.
And we can just guide it a little bit. Then you don't have to do anything drastic at the end. There's no rehab.
So putting children on stakes to avoid rehab is the way to go.
Right.
But the wines are fantastic. I mean, the Pinots are really pretty and savoury and textural. The great texture throughout all the whites as well. A bit of playing around with Nebbiolo, Negro Amaro, some things like this, which is really exciting to keep an eye out for as well.
Yeah.
And mate, overall, just congratulations. I think the wines are, important wines for Geelong and Australia, I think, and you should be really proud of what you've done, and we can't recommend them highly enough. So,
well, thank you so much.
No worries, Ray. Really appreciate it, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Guys, we'll see you again soon. Cheers.
Bye.